What's going on, everybody? Happy Sunday afternoon. I hope you guys have had a great weekend so far. Mine has been good and bad. I've been sick all weekend, so that's bad, but I don't have to go to work, so that's good. So I guess pick your poison, huh? Unfortunately, as an automotive technician, I'm in and out of anywhere from 10 to 12 different cars a day usually, and inevitably I get in one where somebody has been sick and then I pick it up. So unfortunately, I am not feeling very well this weekend, so I will attempt to not sound like garbage this whole video, but I can't promise you anything, and I don't tend to make any promises. So let's just go ahead and get started, shall we? Let's go ahead and jump over to workspace number 3, because I have been doing something, or I did something, I should say, that I wasn't planning on doing necessarily, but somebody has been very vocal about me doing it. So let's go ahead and switch. And if you look, you can see I got a virtual machine up, and if you read the top of the screen there, and it is going to tell you that I am running Gentoo on a virtual machine. Yes, I installed Gentoo. So let's go ahead and discuss what I think about it. Not necessarily overall, because I haven't had it up and running for very long, so I can't speak to Gentoo as a usable system, which obviously it is usable because a lot of people use it, so I'm not going to say that, but let's speak to my experience as to installing it. So let's go ahead and launch terminal here, and you can see I am running Gentoo VM. I'm running 6.1.31 Gentoo, and yeah, so it's up and running. My first attempt ever at installing Gentoo, and to be honest with you, it wasn't half bad. You hear all these horror stories, people talking about how bad Gentoo is, and they use it as a threat. Oh, install Gentoo, and you know, I got to be honest with you, I was pleasantly surprised by the install process. It is very well documented, it is very well laid out, and it was actually fairly straightforward when it came to installing. Now, was it time consuming? Absolutely. Did I do everything the Gentoo way? I highly doubt it, because I didn't use a whole lot of flags, I didn't change a whole lot of stuff, I just kind of went through and got a system up and running. And that was kind of my goal for the first time installing it. I just wanted a system up. I wanted a window manager or desktop environment, which I have Herb's Lift up running right now. I have Polybar running. I have Firefox running, so I can launch a web browser. And I also have like my scripts and stuff up so that I can have a working system on this virtual machine. Now, I will say one thing that I learned as I went through this, and that is, yes, compilation times are long, but sometimes there is a workaround. Like when I installed Firefox, there was so much time spent installing that, it actually took longer than it did to install Gentoo itself. So to compile and install Gentoo and get it all set up took less time than it did to install Firefox and get it actually running. And now that's because I didn't change any use flags, I didn't do anything, and I also found out after the fact that there is pre-made binaries that you can actually just install that route and not compile everything. So unaware of that when I did Firefox, but you know, it's a learning experience. I'm checking things out. But I will say one thing for Gentoo, and if we go ahead and launch that Firefox browser again, and we go to gentoo.org, I will say one thing about Gentoo, and that is that its documentation rivals, or if not rivals, is better than Arch and the Arch Wiki. I will say that following through the Gentoo Wiki and following Gentoo documentation to install programs has been super easy. You have all kinds of documentation here. I haven't worked with documentation that's been this well put together in a long time. So I will say that for Gentoo is their documentation, in my opinion, is spectacular. You can come over here and we have the Gentoo Wiki, we have a bugs list, we have the packages. What's cool about it is if you click on packages and you come in here and say you want to install, I don't know, let's say Firefox, we'll just go with that one. It gives you the options for Firefox, and if you click on it, you can see right here we got Firefox bin. But it gives you use flags. You can actually just go through and see what use flags you need to use. If you want Firefox-bin or binary, it's got that there. It also, if you want to install like, let's say, grub, it has grub right here and gives you all the use flags you need to use to set grub. So it's actually really cool. So if you want to go to the wiki, then once you look at the programs you need and you see the use flags you want, say you go to the wiki, and we are going to go with software. And if you go to software and say you want to look at web browsers, so we could come over here and click on web browsers. and then we want to look at Firefox. So we'll just click on Firefox, and right here you can go through and it tells you use flags, tells you what they're for. It goes through here and gives you all the tips, tells you how to install it, how to walk through it, how to configure it. I mean, this documentation is pretty dang spectacular. So again, if we go back over here to the Gentoo sites and we go into the main page on the wiki, and we scroll down here and we go to core system, and then in core system we click on installation, and right up here you can say see the handbook for official installation instructions. So we can click on that, and then you actually can just go down here and walk through the handbook. And right here, full sectors installation. So we click on that, and you have the installation process right here. As you can see, it's pretty long, but it walks you through step by step on how to download and make your bootable ISO, how to go through and just set up everything, how to do GPG signature, how to boot. And then once you get through all that, you come down and it actually starts walking through the actual install process. And all you got to do is follow through this. I mean, you can go through this step by step, setting up networking, everything, and then this walks through partitioning, it walks through the whole nine, and you can get this thing set up and going. So anybody that wants to sit down and actually take a minute, actually take a few hours, I think, to install Gentoo, if you actually sit down and go through this, I don't think it should be too much of a problem. That being said, everybody has their issues. I know a lot of people who have tried to install it and couldn't get it up and running the first shot. Somehow, some way I managed to, and I think that is because a lot of people don't take the time to read through when they're actually installing stuff. And also, I again did not do things quite the Gentoo way. I didn't go through and change a lot of the use flags or anything like that. I just basically installed with everything. So I just wanted to get it up and going. But that being said, that's kind of my experience with it. Installation was super well laid out, and it went seamlessly. And it took a while, but I actually, first shot, got a working virtual machine of Gentoo, and I was pretty surprised by that. So, Gentoo, not as scary as a lot of people think. It does take a lot of time, but it is a pretty cool system. That being said, would I switch to it from Void? As of right now, no. Gentoo does not really fit my use case. I do see the benefits to it, and I do see why people use it, but for me personally, it's just not something that I feel I need. I love Void. I haven't had any issues with it, so if you use the stability argument about Gentoo, I've had nothing but great success with Void, so I'm not concerned about stability at the moment. I know Gentoo you can build specifically for your system, which is better than a lot of stuff, but you know, it's just one of those things that it is the work worth the reward? Like, is the amount that it takes to get it up and going and to keep it maintained, is that worth the benefit to it? And for me personally, it's not. Now that might change. I'm going to continue messing around with this virtual machine, with this Gentoo setup, and you know, that might change in the future, and I might say, hey, yeah, Gentoo's for me. But as of right now, Gentoo's not for me. It is a pretty cool distribution. It taught me quite a bit about my system when I was going through the install process, and it's actually a pretty decently well laid out system and distribution with excellent documentation, but again, not for me. So that being said, I hope this kind of gives you a general idea of what I thought about Gentoo on the install process and getting it up and going. And yeah, so for you, Josh, this is a Gentoo video. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, a great rest of your evening, and you know, just stay safe. God bless.